Hey guys, this is my review for the Man United Tottenham game. Yes, it's late. Better late than never, I guess. I've just been super busy trying to sort a few things out, but don't really need to go into that. Just know this is my review. Again, I apologise for it being so late. Hopefully, in the future, it won't be this bad, but I can't make any promises. This is all new to me. I haven't done YouTube in a long, long time. But yeah, another thing to note as well is that I will be going on holiday, so we'll be away for the Forest game. I will hopefully be able to watch it. But in terms of a review, if I am able to film one, it won't be here. It will be probably just a simple. It'll be less tactical, more reactionary. Just a nice simple one wherever I am. So yeah, different bit of scenery, and let's see how that all goes. But yeah, that's about that. More about the Man United Tottenham game. So, where did it all go wrong? That's the real question. It was a disappointing result, one that I could see coming, but personally didn't see coming. There was certain aspects of the match that I knew would happen and did happen, in the sense of, let's see if I can just go into here. That one, there you go. Yeah. So one of the aspects that I said when I wrote, because I do stuff on Twitter as well, which is where most of you will know me from. I wrote about this match in terms of the places where we're going to get exposed, is the fact that Tottenham like to operate high and wide. Their wingers like to stay out wide. They like to contain that area, and that was exposed against United for both of the goals, which is worrying in the sense that we got exposed last week against Wolves in the central areas, and this week against Tottenham in the wide areas. So it's two completely different situations, and in both cases they managed to pull the numbers game and beat us. Wolves, we were fortunate, we managed to walk away with 3 points. Tottenham, not so much. The frustrating thing about the Tottenham game, however, is in that first half we could have easily been 2 or 3-0 up after about half an hour. That's the really, really frustrating thing. We're sat here talking about a completely different game, if that's the case. We're just not clinical enough. We should have had that penalty, but I'm not going to talk about that too much because it's a cop-out, really, just to blame the whole result on a referee's decision, because we should never have to be in that situation in the first place. But we should have had a penalty. We saw Bruno's header, where it was a really good chance, just couldn't get his body position sorted out, and he puts it wide. We saw a few opportunities where we broke in behind and just couldn't create that final opportunity and do that final little bit of movement that's going to allow us that situation. Let's go over and have a look. So this is how both of the teams lined up. I'm covering Martinez there, but you don't really need to know. You know how we looked. The way that they exposed us in that second half, because in that first half, like I mentioned, we were very, very good. We created loads of chances and we limited them quite nicely. They did hit the crossbar and the post in the 40th minute, but before then, they only created 2 chances. And both of those chances were of our own making from giving the ball away in silly areas. And they managed to break and create 2 chances. So, although we did manage to limit them and they didn't create very much, we did get exposed a few times. I'm just looking at me now, and I apologise for the colour correction on my software. It's a bit crazy, but you know, I'm sorry about that. There's nothing I can do right now. Yeah, second half they changed the system up a little bit. They went back to how I expected them to play, in terms of they used that width a lot more, and it's something that we didn't get exposed about as much in that first half. So one thing that they liked to do was, as I mentioned previously, they like to stick their players high and wide. I'll have to do it over in the top left hand corner and our right hand side, because I'm covering what's happening down here. What they did was they'd stick Richarlison in the middle and he'd just move around, he'd just try and cause problems. And then they'd have Maddison sit in this pocket, they'd have Son sit out here, and United, let's get the ball in play. When the ball was in this sort of situation here, United love to just pack the centre. We play everything in that middle third. So what we'll look to do is we'll look to squeeze, and when we're defending, we defend the width of our box. You don't really see us push out wide. You don't see us marking players when they're that far out, which is where the problem came, and they clearly did their homework on us. So if we're going to look at it in this way, we lined up quite often like this. It's probably closer to that. But if we go back, I have a few pictures from the goals that they did score. If we have a look here. So this is where I mentioned where it's worrying about how narrow we were playing and how we just allowed them the ball. So you can see here, Maddison, we have our full 11 in this one area of the pitch here, and we're marking 4 or 5 players. Again, it's just so narrow, and I wouldn't call it a problem because it's how we're drilled and it's what's worked in the past. But you can see here, Maddison's got far too much time considering our whole 11 is in that one area, and he's just sat there in the pocket. This is our front three at this point. It all got a bit confused in about the 65th minute. We did bring off Anthony, we brought on Eriksson, which meant I predicted it. It just didn't go as I expected it and as Ten Hag expected in the end. And we brought Jadon Sancho on also for Alejandro Garnacho, and it all just confused matters a bit because it meant that we then had Mount or Bruno on the wing, and we've also seen Sancho operating in the central areas as well during pre-season. So we didn't know whether Sancho was down the middle, whether he was on the left, on the right, or even in that number 10 position, which meant that at times we had Mount either up top, we had Mount on the left, on the right central position, and we also had Bruno on the right, left central position. So everything was just getting a little bit confusing. No one really knew what their role was. It's good to have fluidity, but you have to be fluid and not confused. And we were too close to being confused in the matter. We just couldn't quite figure out where we wanted to play, where we're going to operate, and we had troubles figuring out who we're marking as well. You see it. We saw quite often just people just in the Tottenham team drifting in and out, finding those pockets of space because we just didn't know who was operating and who was meant to be operating in those different areas. So we see here the ball is eventually played out wide, and it's just a simple ball really. A lot of people are going to criticise Dalot for it. Let's see if I can find a picture of the cross. So I'll find it. I've got too many pictures here. It's around here. This is where this is where the cross comes in. So you can see if I bring it over. So I've got a few different images. So this is where the ball starts here. It starts in the back line. He plays this little cute ball in here, I believe, and slots in. Gets I think it might be him in here. Manages to sit in that pocket, plays it back to Maddison. Maddison just ghosts into that area. As you can see here, yep, comes inside, plays it in. Maddison then plays it out wide to Son, and you can see here, this is a different situation, but this shows just how they're going to look to function. So you can see they want to double up with our players out wide. So they've got their wingers that hold the width, and then they've got their midfielder that comes to help them. So you can see that they just look to just outnumber us, and it happened far too often, and it meant that our players would squeeze because they're so terrified they're going to get outnumbered. I need to fix this colour grading. I apologise. Let's see if I can do it on the fly. Hopefully we don't have that issue. I think it's consistent. Oh well, you're going to have to deal with it, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's going to keep going. Anyway, so I'm just going to be multicoloured for today, and hopefully I can fix this for the next video. Yeah, far too often we were just terrified of getting exposed on the wings. We were squeezing and hoping that by squeezing that we were allowing them the ball out wide, but we were hoping that nothing can come of it. And it worked for the most part. However, this wasn't an issue in the first half. Tottenham were far more one-to-one in that first half, and we just had a lot more of the ball in better areas. And this is where my problem comes in terms of personnel and the substitutions that were made. We saw, I think Anthony was on a yellow card, Bruno was on a yellow card, and Wan-Bissaka was on a yellow card, and 2 of those ended up coming off. We saw the same thing in the first game when Lisandro Martinez was on a yellow card, so he came off. If we have a look here, we were caught in similar situations in that first half than we were in the second half, and the difference being Anthony. He gets a lot of stick in this fan base, and at times it is deserved because he can be very, very, very wasteful. But in terms of our structure, in terms of the system, I don't think that there's many in this team better than him in terms of understanding the system, understanding the fluidity of it all, which is exactly why Ten Hag brought him in, because he played under him for a few years at Ajax. So he knows exactly what to do. So when these little pockets of space open up, he's the one that fills them. So we can even see here, he's filled in that space. He's technically a DM at this point. I did a few different things on Twitter as well, if I can find them. If I can go onto my Twitter again. Here you go. Don't know how well you can see that because it is zoomed in a little bit. But Anthony, he operates wherever the space is, and he sits in that area. So you can see, if I can show it. So you've got here, you've got Mount, you've got Casemiro, and you've got Anthony, because Bruno has pushed forwards to follow his man. Rashford has come out wide. You can't really see him. There you go. Rashford's come out wide to follow his man also, and Anthony's recognised that space, and he has then pushed himself and is holding that position in the central midfield spot, just so that we're not outnumbered in that area. We then saw it as Wan-Bissaka, you can't see it off the screen, but he's about to rush this pass that's being played to Heung-min Son. Anthony is then, if I can show it there you go. Anthony has slotted in to cover for Wan-Bissaka. This is just something we didn't see in that second half, because as I mentioned previously, everyone was just so confused as to what the system was and what their role was meant to be. They didn't know what they were covering. That's the problem. We were just so confused in that second half that we went from complete fluidity to complete confusion, and it just doesn't work, and it was slightly worrying. But in terms of how we're going to fix that in the future, I don't know. I think it's just consistent, keep figuring out what our best system is and trying to maximise what we have on the ball, trying to improve just how clinical we're going to be. That comes from just consistency. You see with City, they score a lot of goals in terms of similar actions because they have so many of that same type of effort and the same type of build-up. They've become so familiar and just so consistent with it all that they know exactly what they're going to do before it even happens. When you look at United, it looks a little bit more forced because it seems like at times the players are making it up on the spot. They're not. It's all drilled, but we're just not at that level yet where the automatisms are just natural. We will get there at some point, and we are building towards that, but we'll see actually how long that will take. And one big point as well is we're still lacking that number 9. Hopefully Rasmus Højlund will be back soon, because we do desperately need him. And we shouldn't be putting all this pressure on this young kid who is yet to play a minute for this club. But we've got to that situation where Martial's made of glass. He did return for this game, did a few nice things and showed why we're so desperate for that focal point, but we just can't trust him to stay fit. And it's Martial and Højlund. That's our only two options up top, and so we're having to hang our hat on this 20-year-old kid who has played 1.5 full seasons, hasn't played a single minute in the Premier League, and is coming in with a lot of weight on his shoulders. But we're at that point now where that has to be the case because we've got no other option. Hopefully when he comes in, we can see Rashford go back out wide, and we can have that little bit more structure and a bit more understanding between the team. And I do feel like there does need to be a change up in this midfield. It will work eventually. That functionality will be there with Casemiro, with Mount and with Bruno, but it's just not there yet, and we're just trying too many new things too quickly. We're trying to integrate Onana, who's going to change the way we play. We're trying to integrate Mount, who's going to help us press on the front, but is not going to be as prevalent on the ball as Eriksen was wanting to be. So that midfield has gone from Eriksen and Bruno constantly on the ball to Bruno on the ball and Mount wanting to just create space by his movement, as well as winning the ball back quite high up. You've got Casemiro is looking to play that little bit higher as well this season. We're just looking to try and squeeze teams from the front, and although it can work at times, in that Tottenham game, for example, we had probably 30 minutes where it was just sustained. We'd win the ball back in really good areas, and we'd force turnovers. When it doesn't work, it looks really bad. It will work eventually. That's the important thing. we will get to a point where that is something that will work. But I think that in terms of to get it to work, we need to go back to the basics first. We need to go back to the basics. We need to get that little bit of just composure back on the ball. We need to just try and just get a bit of momentum, really. We need to go back to basics, get momentum, and then we can use the momentum to just try those little things in the background, and then eventually it will all come together. We'll have momentum, we'll have that little bit more of tactical knowledge, and hopefully we can then integrate this new system. But it's just so much in one go. If it works, it's going to be great. If it doesn't, it could be horrendous for a little bit. And in this game, I don't want to call out players or managers because we're 2 games in at the end of the day. There's no point. It's not going to get you anything. Just calling people out all the time. We need to build towards something. But it's in this day, in this game, points to everything, and we can't go into a season where we had a really good season last season. We got 3rd, we got a trophy, we got another final, and we did okay in Europe. We need to push on now, and we can't afford to be dropping too many points to try and create this new system. Yes, we want to build towards the future, but we also have to prove for the now, because you earn that future by performing in the present. But, you know, hopefully we see something better. Hopefully we have a bit of a change up towards the Nottingham Forest game. It is important to note that the first 2 games of this season have been against 2 new managers into the league. Well, Gary Neville isn't new into the league, but is new into the Wolves team. So we're playing against 2 different managers who we haven't been able to prepare for. We would have gone into that Wolves game preparing for Julio Lopetegui's team, and then it got changed to Gary Neville the week of the match. We would have gone into this Ange Postecoglou game, only seeing 1 professional game of him at Tottenham. We wouldn't know if he would carry over from his past tenures. So hopefully now playing against Nottingham Forest, we know what to expect, and we should look a little bit better because we're preparing for the opposition as well as improving our own system. We need to properly work now while we can, while we're playing 1 game a week. We need to be preparing better, but hopefully we see something better. That's all I'm saying. We should see something better, especially as at Old Trafford. We still have that incredible record at Old Trafford. We just don't lose at Old Trafford. Right now, it's a fortress. We haven't lost since that Sociedad game, in which case we shouldn't have lost that game. Really dodgy penalty in that one. We created enough chances, but that's been almost a year now since we lost at home. The last league game, the last domestic game we lost at home was to Brighton in the first game of last season. So it's over a year in the league in England since we last lost at home, and I can't see that changing against Nottingham Forest, who, all due respect, they're a good side, but just no, we shouldn't be losing that one. And like I said, I'll film a preview for that one, but the review will be slightly different. But yeah, I'll see you guys in that one. I'm going to try and do another video this week about our attacking problems and why it is we're struggling to score goals, because we have got an XG of about 4.2 in the first 2 games, scoring 1 goal. And that's clearly not good enough, and let's see why that's the issue. But until then, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.